Beauty and the Beast. Once there was a rich merchant who had 3 daughters. 2 of them were totally selfish, but the third, Beauty, was kind and loving. One day, the merchant received news that his ship had sunk in a great storm. He had lost all his money and was left with nothing but a tiny cottage in the country. The 2 greedy sisters hated it. They refused to do anything except lie in bed and moan. All work was left to Beauty. After a time, however, the merchant heard that one of his missing ships had reached port. Before he set off to claim it, he asked his daughters what presents they'd like him to bring back. The greedy sisters cheered up at once. "Dresses and jewels," they begged. "And you, Beauty?" the merchant asked. "A rose. That will be enough for me," Beauty said. A few days later, the merchant sadly began his ride home. He was as poor as ever, for he had been cheated out of his money. As he entered a forest, the night drew in. It was dark and cold. A blizzard blew, and the snow piled into drifts. Wolves howled in the distance. For hours, the merchant and his horse stumbled about, lost until suddenly, straight ahead, a bright light shone from a magnificent castle. But this was the strangest castle. For although there were fires in the fireplaces and lights burning in every room, no one was there. The merchant called and called. No one came. Eventually, he tethered his tired horse in the stables and sat down at the castle's high table to eat the meal set out there. Then he went to bed. In the morning, he found new clothes laid out for him. Downstairs, a cup of steaming hot chocolate had been put out for his breakfast. "This castle must belong to a good fairy who has taken pity on me," the merchant said. "If only I could thank her." As he was leaving, the merchant passed a bed of roses. At least I can keep my promise to Beauty," he thought. He snapped off a stem of blossoms. Immediately, there was a bellow of rage from behind the bushes. Leaped a terrible beast, so ugly that the merchant almost fainted. "You ungrateful man," the beast roared. "I saved your life. I fed and clothed you. Now you steal my beautiful roses. You must die at once." The merchant fell to his knees. "The rose was for one of my daughters, my lord," he said. "I am no lord. I am a beast," the creature snarled. He towered over the merchant and asked, "For your precious daughters? Go and see if one of them will save your life by coming to live with me. If not, in 3 months you will die." The merchant rode home sorrowfully through the sunlit forest. At home, the 2 sisters paid hardly any attention to the story of his terrible adventure. They were infuriated that he'd brought them no dresses or jewels, but Beauty was different. "Father, let me go," she begged. "You deserved to," the sister said. "If it hadn't been for your stupid rose, the beast wouldn't have wanted to kill our father." 3 months later, the merchant returned to the castle with Beauty. All was as before, the empty castle, the meal ready on the table. Then, when they'd finished eating, the beast appeared. Beauty trembled, for he was as dreadful as her father had described, or worse. "Have you come here of your own free will?" the beast demanded. "Yes," Beauty replied. "In that case, your father must leave in the morning and never set foot here again." So next morning, Beauty was left alone. At first she cried, but then she remembered a dream she'd had. In it, a woman had told her, "Beauty, your bravery in saving your father will be rewarded." Beauty cheered up. Perhaps things might go well after all. She walked through the gardens, looking sadly at the rose beds, then explored inside the castle. Imagine her surprise when she found a door with her name on it. Inside, the room was exactly as she'd have furnished it herself. full of books and musical instruments. The beast cannot mean to harm me, she thought, if he intends me to enjoy myself so much. Beauty took out a book. On it was written in letters of gold, "Here you are, Queen. Your wish is my command." If only I could see what my father is doing now, she cried out loud. And she could, in the mirror on the far side of the room. As the picture faded, Beauty felt less lonely and homesick. That night at supper, the beast appeared. "Beauty," he asked timidly, "may I watch you?" "You are master here," Beauty said. "No," the beast replied. "You are the mistress. I will go if you wish." The beast hesitated. "But tell me, do you find me unbearably ugly?" Beauty didn't know what to say, then looked him straight in the face. "Beast, I have to tell you the truth. I am afraid I do." When she finished her meal, the beast had one more question. "Beauty," he asked, "will you marry me?" "No, beast, never." The sigh the beast gave echoed through the castle. Every night at 9 o'clock, the beast came to talk. Beauty found she liked him more and more. She even fretted if he was late. If only he wasn't so ugly. If only he wouldn't keep asking her to marry him. She dreaded having to refuse and hearing the haunting sigh he gave afterwards. "You may not love me, Beauty," he said, "but you'll never leave me, will you? Promise that." For 3 months it went on like this. Then one day, Beauty saw in the mirror that her father was ill. At once she asked the beast if she could go home to care for him. "Beauty, you must go," the beast replied. "You know that I will die of grief if you don't come back, don't you? I am afraid that you will stay at your father's, but if you want to come back, just put your ring on your bedside table. The next morning you will wake in my castle." "I will return in a week," Beauty promised. Next morning, Beauty woke in her own warm bed in her father's cottage. How overjoyed he was to see her. It made him better at once. That afternoon, her sisters, who had gotten married in the meantime, came to visit. How jealous and angry they were when they saw that their father's favorite had come back. "Listen," one said to the other, "let's trick her. Let's persuade her to stay a second week. Then the beast will come and kill her." Instead of moaning and criticizing her, the two sisters rubbed onions in their eyes and pretended to cry at the thought of Beauty leaving. Beauty promised to stay another week. Yet soon, Beauty found that she was missing the beast as much as she'd missed her father. As she slept, she had a terrible dream in which the beast was lying cold and lifeless on the castle lawn. She sat bolt upright in bed. How could she have been so heartless? Quickly, she pulled off her ring and put it on the bedside table. When she woke again, she was in the beast's castle. That evening, she waited for him. 9 o'clock struck. He didn't come. 1/4 struck too. Suddenly, full of dread, she ran through the castle and out into the gardens. The beast lay on the lawn. She had killed him. Forgetting his appearance, Beauty threw herself upon him. His heart was still beating. "I thought you would never come back. I tried to starve myself to death," he whispered. "But I love you, beast," Beauty said. "I want to marry you." Then something amazing happened. The castle seemed to become even more beautiful, more full of light. Beauty gazed around, then turned back to the beast, but the beast was gone. In his place was a handsome young prince lay on the lawn. "I want the beast," Beauty cried. The prince stood up. "I am the beast," he said. "An evil fairy put a spell on me. She turned me into something unbearably ugly. I would have stayed like that for the rest of my life if you had not said you would marry me." The prince led Beauty into the castle. There she found her father and the woman she'd seen in her dream, the good fairy. "Beauty," the good fairy said, "you have your reward." She waved her wand In an instant, everyone in the hall was transported to the prince's kingdom, where the prince's subjects greeted him with cheers and applause. Soon Beauty and her Beast were married. They became the happiest prince and princess that ever lived. The end.